All right, good evening. At 6:30, we'll start this City Council meeting for September 18, 2023. Welcome. Good evening. We got some noise back there. It's cool. So first, we'll start off with the invocation and pledge allegiance. So, Councilmember Duckworth is going to lead us in the invocation or pledge.
Well, this is, I think I did it 2 weeks ago. Reverend Cannon's here. If he'd like to fill in today, go ahead.
Good evening. I left Washington, D.C. at 6 o'clock last night. I arrived at 8 o'clock this morning just to be here for this meeting.
That's a good drive.
Thank you.
Thank
I'm
you.
impressed.
Fill this council, O great creator of this universe, as we make decisions on this community. Grant that we remain in constant communication with Thee. We ask that you be at best with all of us who are here tonight. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. Thank you, John. Thank you, Reverend. Yes, sir. Looking for Jose's in the back. Yes, sir. Wait for welcome. Jose, I'm going to ask if you don't mind coming up and introducing your distinguished guest here. If he wants to come on up, sure, too. Hey,
Well,
please.
thank you so much for having us here.
Thank you for being here.
We have a group of Clemson University students representing different groups. So we have students representing LUCU, Latinos Unidos of Clemson University. Another big national organization is the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers, and also the Association of Latino Professionals for America, ALPA. So it's student groups representing multiple colleges. And we're very proud of our heritage, and we're very thankful you're including us in this community.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. I'm going to read a proclamation, and then we'll get a chance to come on up if you're cool with that. So I have to put on the glasses now. I say it every time. My age is showing. So this is a proclamation for the Hispanic and Latinx Heritage Month, September 15th through October 15th of 2023. Whereas this month we honor Hispanic and Latinx individuals and cultures for enriching the fabric of our society and being a vital component of the rich diversity that makes Clemson a vibrant and thriving community. Whereas the Hispanic and Latinx communities represent a wide range of nationalities and backgrounds who share and embrace our community's rich values of faith, family, hard work, sacrifice of generations past while contributing mightily to the promise of prosperous city for future generations. Whereas we recognize and dedicated to addressing the challenges of equality and opportunity that many Hispanic and Latinx individuals still face, and reflecting on Clemson's rich cultural diversity and heritage, let us take pride in our unique and vibrant history and recommit to shared future of freedom, prosperity, and opportunity for all. Whereas it is incumbent upon us to join together to celebrate the work of Hispanic and Latinx individuals from all walks of life who in pursuit of the American dream have made the city of Clemson their home and committed themselves to being a strong, safe, and welcoming community for all. Now, therefore, I, Robert Halfaker, Mayor of the City of Clemson, do hereby proclaim the month of September 15th through October 15th as Hispanic and Latinx Heritage Month in the City of Clemson. Furthermore, I encourage all citizens to observe and take part in activities recognizing the contributions of Hispanic and Latinx individuals to the cultural life of our city, state, nation, and world. In witness whereof, I hereunto set my hand and cause the great seal of the city to be affixed this 18th day of September 2023. Thank you for being here. Hand deliver those.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. We'll come around. Come around.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
We come over to the side. You're the front. We'll get a few cameras here, so we'll kind of squeeze back.
Yes, ma'am. Good. Awesome. Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good to see you a little bit. Awesome. Amazing. All right, ready? 3, 2, 1. Nice.
Thank you.
Mind if I get one too, Mr. Rowe? Sure. Awesome. Thank you so much. Yes, no. Thank you. I'll give this to you. This is yours.
Cool. All right. You're okay with that.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you all for being here.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
You're more than welcome to stay. We always say this at city council meetings. But family comes first, God and family always first. So you can leave whenever you think is appropriate.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome to stay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
One day that I'm going to ask the course, it's called.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're also have another proclamation to read. It's Suicide and Awareness and Prevention Month for September of 2023. Whereas every year thousands of individuals die by suicide, leaving behind their friends and family members to navigate the tragedy of loss, while feelings of shame and stigma prevent those suicide loss survivors from talking openly. Whereas suicidal thoughts, much like mental health conditions, can affect everyone and are often the result of untreated mental health condition. Whereas suicidal thoughts, although common, should not be considered normal and often indicate more serious issues. Whereas over half the people diagnosed with a mental health condition have symptoms by age 14 and 75% by age 24. Additionally, 20% of youth are affected by mental health condition, and suicide is the second, I'll read that again, suicide is the second leading cause of death for youth ages 10 through 24. Whereas National Alliance of Mental Illness, NAMI, is the nation's largest grassroots organization dedicated to providing advocacy, education, support, and public awareness so that all individuals and families affected by mental illness can build better lives. Whereas September is National Suicide Prevention Awareness Month, a time to share resources and stories in an effort to shed light on the highly taboo and stigmatized topic. Now, therefore, I, Robert Halfaker, Mayor of the City of Clemson, do hereby proclaim the month of September 2023 to be Suicide Awareness and Prevention Month, and encourage all citizens to reach out to those affected by suicide, get informed about the warning signs, help raise awareness of programs to help and connect individuals to suicide to treatment services throughout. In witness whereof, I hereunto set my hand and have caused the great seal of the city to be affixed this 18th day of September 2023. Thank you very much. Is there anybody here from NAMI? Just want to make sure. If not, okay. We'll make sure we put this. All right. Thank you. All right. Next, before we do that, I'm just going to recognize real quickly before we go into public session. Thank you for the scout group that's here. I know this is part of the merit badge. And again, we say, whatever the requirements are, we honor those requirements. Obviously, I should know that going through the troop, but you don't have to stay for the whole meeting. Just remember that. So, but just get as much out of it as possible, okay? So we're glad you're here tonight. We appreciate y'all being here. So, all right, next is public session. I'll turn it over to Mayor Pro Tem Alicia Smith.
Good evening, everyone. Glad you were able to make it out tonight. And this is your opportunity to come and share and make any comments to the council, the public, about any issue that you may have and want to bring to our attention. It could be positive, it could be things that you want us to be aware of. It's 3 minutes. We give each speaker 3 minutes, and we just ask that you come up, tell us who you are and where you reside, and you also have to sign in and do the same thing. Give your name and where you live. And it has to be something that's not already on the agenda for tonight. So it has to be something that is not a policy item or a policy action or other action that we're taking action on tonight. So this is your opportunity.
How are you all? Peter Hyatt, 110 Roslyn Drive. I run a ministry, Baptist Collegiate Ministry at 183 Old Greenville Highway. And I have a student who has cerebral palsy, and he's in a wheelchair, and he can't get down, I guess, the sidewalk. So I sent an email to Andy, saying there's a curb cut right in front of Gentry Hall that needed to be redone so it was accessible. I sent an email to Andy, who sent an email to Nathan, and within, I think it was 12 days, the university had that cut and done for that student. And so I just want to acknowledge where the city, thank you Nathan, thank you Andy. I know it's simple things that forward in emails, but the city and the university working well together. Michael Jones is his name, he's a sophomore. He just said, thank you, wow, I've never had things happen that fast. So thanks to the university, but thanks for the city, just care for people.
Thank you.
Robert Lee, I live at 113 Presley Drive, Clemson. I'll go ahead and sign in here. So I live at 113 Presley Drive. That's up behind what used to be Days Inn, Holiday Inn Express there. I have a comment. I prepared some statements on my whiteboard now, but I decided not to go that way just to talk about this. I've tried to understand something, that one of the city initiatives, and I'm reluctant to use the words the city uses in that initiative. There was recently a city council, conversation with council, with Link Consultants, did a presentation on the email from the city was there were concerns about this initiative. So, and I struggled with trying to understand that, and I really was lost and had trouble with the language until I came upon something from my earlier education. And it was once the motto of the United States until I think 1956 they changed, but it's the Latin e pluribus unum. So it finally occurred to me that's really what I think the city is trying to do with its diversity initiatives. But I think it gets lost and alienates people with the language it uses for some reason. I don't know exactly why. Maybe I'll follow up on that. But I think if there was some historical connection to this initiative the city is trying to do, cultural diversity, and it's nothing new. It's back to, I don't know when it was first, it appears on coins, still on coins, e pluribus unum, from many one is the translation of it. So from many one is what I believe the city is trying to do with its initiative. From many, many diverse groups of all kinds of differences, trying to come up with one way forward for everybody, a better way forward. But it somehow gets lost to me. And I think I'm not the only one, because the city's had to do this conversation and hire these people to make some translation of it. But perhaps some connection to that. It's I think it did get removed as the official motto, but some connection to something that's not new but ongoing. That's from the beginning of our country. It was that e pluribus unum. People from all over the place came together and tried to make one. So anyway, I appreciate you listening. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments from the public? And if not, I do have two that was sent in on my Civic app, and also just be a reminder that you can send comments if you are not able to attend in person, and so I'll go ahead and read those. We received one from Tracy Bolger, located at 318 Princess Grace Avenue, Clemson, South Carolina. Her note is, I do not support any rezoning of the Bilo property from commercial to housing. We use many other businesses remaining there and would be heartbroken to see them forced to move or have to pay higher rents to stay in any new development. So that is her comment to council. And then I have one more. It's from Valerie Boatwright. Address, it says Newton Street, Clemson, South Carolina. Our small residential neighborhood adjoins the proposal site. There's already student housing on Sumi, and more was just completed on Fabrica. We have no HOA, only current zoning, to protect us from hundreds of additional people living in the proposed area. Our current neighborhood would be ruined by this large multifamily development, and sticking a few commercial entities on the ground level would not change the problems Clemson Station would bring, not only to my neighborhood and the neighborhood across Highway 93, but also already very busy traffic on Highway 93 and Highway 123. And so she had included two maps so that we can see those from the aerial view. Please do not allow the area proposed for use by Clemson Station to change from commercial to include multifamily housing. Respectfully, Valerie Boatwright. And those are the two. And if there are no more comments, at this time I will close public session and turn it back over to you, Mayor.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Next on the agenda is the possible approval of minutes for August 21st of 2023. Would somebody like to make a motion?
Make a motion, we approve the minutes of August 21st, 2023 as presented.
Second.
Okay. Discussion, comments? If not, all in favor, raise your right hand. And Catherine?
Catherine?
For those in the audience, one of our council members was out with a procedure earlier today, so she could not be here in person.
Do you approve the minutes?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you, Catherine. All right. We really should.
Put her on FaceTime.
If you want.
With the photo by Robert.
Yeah, by Rob.
Catherine, we're just moving you.
Very mobile.
All right. Thank you, Austin.
Andy told me to be quiet and behave, so I had the phone on mute.
Everybody can hear you.
Just remember, everybody can hear you, Catherine. All righty. So next is the reports and discussion. The first item is to discuss the scope and financing for enhancements of Nettles Park, Clemson Park, and the Green Crescent Trail. Andy, you're going to start this conversation off. Yes, sir.
All right, this is for the bond that you guys are going to be considering later on tonight. Jordan Kaiser is here from First Tryon, and he can answer some questions for you. But basically, you guys said set aside approximately 25% of your hospitality receipts. We estimated that to be about $450,000.
and it actually turns out that our actual 25% is more like $550,000. The bond submissions, the bid we received, were pretty favorable. We did have a 10-year option at 4.39%. That would have been an annual debt service payment of $571,000, which is 28% of your total receipts. If things trend the way they are and we continue our practice of reducing our transfers to general fund, you'll be at 25% very quickly. I just wanted to briefly go over for the public the enhancements that you're looking at here, and to make sure that these are what you guys are also wanting to support. At Nettles Park, we have 56 paved parking spaces, 8 dedicated pickleball courts with lights, a covered gathering area, and a dog park. Estimated cost $1.2 million. Clemson Park, we have a skate park feature, a splash pad, drainage improvements, and a building renovation to include a warming kitchen and event staging area. Estimated cost is $2.2 million. And Green Crescent Trail, approximately 2.75 miles of trail running along 18 Mile Creek, connecting Patrick Square to the Road 18 side of the Grange. And the estimated cost is $3.1 million. If you took the full bond amount, I think it does cover these enhancements based on our cost estimates. If you wanted to stick with the $450,000 payment, you'd have to reduce your borrowing by $1 million. And then that would free up cash that you could apply to projects in the future, but I think it's going to delay the build out. But Jordan can explain some of that in a little more detail for you. So you guys can, later in the agenda, when you're adopting your bond ordinance, you'll notice there's 2 items there. One of them is a general bond ordinance. That is just going to be your general ordinance for issuing bonds. We haven't done this in so long. Bond attorney thought it was a good opportunity to refresh that. So any bond you issue after that is going to be supplemental bond ordinance. So it's supplemental to the general one. So that's why it looks that way on your agenda. So when you're voting on that, you're probably going to want to specify which term you guys want to go with.
Yeah, thank you for having me again. My name is Jordan Kaiser. I work with First Tryon Advisors. And as Andy said, we've been working with the city on this financing, which is the Special Obligation Bond Series 2023, which is going to be a hospitality fee, and hospitality taxes are pledged as revenues to then pay debt service. We sent out an RFP to banks towards the end of August, and last Thursday was the response due date from banks. We received responses from 4 different banks: Webster Bank, First Citizens, Truist, and Capital One. So great result on that. And as Andy mentioned, Webster Bank provided the low. We asked for 4 different terms for the financing: 7 years, 10 years, 12 years, and 15 years. Webster Bank was consistently providing the lowest interest rate for each of those terms. So we would recommend that the city select Webster Bank as the lender for this financing. And just to kind of touch on something that Andy mentioned earlier, yes, if we were discussing the 10-year financing option for Webster Bank, which again, the interest rate on that is 5.39%. And the annual debt service payment on that financing would be about $571,000. If you wanted to stay closer to $450,000 in annual debt service payments and still finance for a term of 10 years, yeah, you would need to lower the borrowing amount by about $1 million. Another option too, since they did provide the longer terms, if you felt that you needed to borrow the full amount, about $4.6 million, and you still wanted to keep annual debt service payments at about $450,000 a year, you could finance for a longer period. The 15-year term would allow the city to have a payment of about, I think it was $425,000. Yeah, about $425,000. So that's another option as well. If you flip it, if you flip to the next page, so this, sorry, I should have mentioned this earlier. This is the bank bid summary that we put together. We kind of read through their term sheets and take note of everything that's important to consider, the interest rates, any additional terms that we would need to work with each lender on going forward. We pay close attention to the prepayment provisions. Another thing that we liked about the Webster proposal is they did offer prepayment flexibility. So down the road, the city, if interest rates go down, the city would have the ability to, pay off the loan or refinance the loan at a potentially lower interest rate. That's another thing that we liked about the Webster Bank proposal. We've also provided some information on the three other banks. If you would flip to the next slide, please. So we discussed, as Andy brought up earlier, we discussed the 10-year financing option. Do we finance the full amount? Do we borrow the full amount, about $4.6 million, or do we only borrow $3.6 million? So we wanted to look at those scenarios and kind of compare them. If you would go to the next slide, please. What we did, so the top chart there shows what we did is we took the fiscal year 2024 budget. We looked at the revenues, which are projected to be about $1.94 million. We took the expenses and then all the transfers out of the hospitality fee and hospitality tax funds, and we just assumed that those would remain constant. The only change to point out is you might notice that in the expense column, you'll see that in 2024, the projected expense is $434,000, and then the next year's, it drops down to $219,000. The reason is because there's a $215,000 budgeted expense for recreation buildings for 2024 that we believe is just a one-time expense. So we kind of took that out. We took that expense out going forward. But anyway, so all the revenues, expenses, and transfers, except for that expense that I just mentioned, is projected to kind of flatline going forward. And then you can see the debt service column, the debt service associated with a full $4.6 million borrowing. That's the $571,000 in debt service. That would leave the city with a surplus of about $47,000 in fiscal year 2024, and then in years thereafter, a surplus of about $262,000. So all those assumptions would allow the city to kind of continue to add to its fund balance. The second scenario below that is where we only finance $3.6 million, and instead the city would pay for, assuming the city still wants to spend that $1 million on other projects, it would do so on a pay-go basis. We just assumed, let's just do it over 3 years, in 25, 26, and 27, just as an example. And really what this slide just illustrates is that it would take, in those 3 years that you're spending on a pay-go basis, obviously you would generate less of a surplus. But over time, once you get past about 8 years, you would essentially, the lower debt service payments that you would have been making on a lower borrowing amount, over 8 years they'll accumulate you'll basically be able to get that $1 million back that you would have otherwise gotten up front if you were to borrow the full $4.6 million. So that's kind of the break even, is about 8 years. So really, we just wanted to discuss these options, and I think at the end of the day, it comes down to if the city prioritizes saving on interest costs. Obviously, the lower amount that you borrow is going to provide the most interest cost or interest savings. If the city would like more budgetary flexibility, maybe you want to have a lower debt service payment each year.
Did you run it at $500,000 in debt service since that was 25%? We talked about doing the 25% of our hospitality. So that would be 500,000 instead of 571 versus 450. Kind of trying to split the middle, because the way I look at that is your 600,000, you close that gap a lot quicker. Some of these projects take a couple of years to plan and move forward, so you actually accumulate that cash before you really put down anything moving forward in some of those projects. I was just curious, kind of what splitting the difference would do there.
Well, we didn't run the analysis of figuring out, all right, how much could we borrow and get exactly 500,000, but actually it turns out that if you were to finance the full 4.6 million for 12 years, so that's a 4.495% interest rate, that would be an annual.
Staying on 10 years, it'd be about $4 million if you did it on 10 years. That's what it's about, 600,000 difference. Just kind of backing into it.
Yeah, it would be right about somewhere in the middle of that 3.6 and 4.6. Yeah, we didn't run that math.
And to
It's
John's point,
$240,000 over the life of the loan at 10 years that we're talking about, the difference between scenario A and scenario B. We, in the analysis of what our fund balance is in those accounts, again, I've said this before, we're still at 100% fund balance. We're at 1 year's fund balance in a fund that doesn't, like we have our 6-month fund balance policy for our general fund. Our hospitality and accommodations tax fund, we don't even need 6 months. So we've got an extremely strong fund balance here. We're in a great position. I think over $240,000 over 10 years. We're splitting hairs. And without the prepayment penalties and those kind of things as we go forward, we can pay, we can pay this off sooner. We can do those kind of things. And I don't think we need to like sweat over this little bit of difference.
You made a great point about your fund balance, because that actually lends itself to borrowing a little bit less and not incurring that interest cost, because you got the fund balance there to do it. So that's the number I was looking for, is trying to keep our debt service within 25% of the intake. Use some of that fund balance to move it along. Then you more quickly accumulate over the 5 to 10 year period back to a higher balance available, just using the same analysis he did right here.
That's excellent if we don't do anything else in the future. But as Andy said, I think I don't want to do that at the expense of other projects. I would like this to be the beginning of us, really focusing in on these quality of life issues and quality of life amenities that people have been asking for years. So I think.
You said you shortchanged any of those. This is moving forward 100%.
Oh yeah, but I'm saying it's not a one and done. It's not a one and done.
So Jordan, just to go back, we're getting this, if we go and it gets approved on a 10-year, and I totally agree with your point of the quality of life to enhancements that we need within the community. Can you do this in a draw schedule, or is it all one lump sum? Did y'all ask Webster?
We did not ask Webster. The reason that we didn't ask Webster is because the city would be able to go get. We did ask Webster if the city can essentially get the proceeds and invest them.
Reinvest them.
Yeah, the city can invest them in the LGIP, the South Carolina local government pool, and you can earn more than essentially than you're paying on this. So we kind of discussed that there's not really an advantage of setting it up that way, because again, if you get these proceeds invested, you'll be able to earn that money that you're.
So Bob just put in the keynote on the first one with that proposal. It says that it can be reinvested in an escrow account that's collateralized. So I think that accomplishes what you're saying.
Yeah, and we kind of looked at that language, especially the collateralization language. We called the bank on that, and we said, look, we just want to be able to take the proceeds at closing and invest the money, until it needs to be spent. And they confirmed that yes, we can do that.
Quick question, I may be getting a little bit of just the bank room. How long will they guarantee this rate?
Oh, they're gonna. Let's see. They updated this. Initially, they wanted us to respond to them on Friday.
10/6.
Say it's October 6th.
It says 10/6.
I think it's like a 30-day close.
So 30-day close. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. We would need to get back to them on if we're going to move forward.
Commit by 10/6.
Okay. Well, thank you for.
Now let me ask this question. So if we could reinvest, do we have any idea what kind of rate we'd get?
If you use a state pool of funds right now, I think Leslie, it's around 5%, right?
Five.
It's 5.5 right now.
So really, why not?
So yeah.
My only
Sorry,
issue-
Leslie, I called you out.
My only issue about not doing the full thing is I don't want to delay this at all for any reason. And I
It's not delayed with what I'm saying.
I'm just saying that I realize probably of the three projects, the Clemson Park project's going to take the longest period of time. But I mean, the other two should go pretty quickly. I think Nettles should go really quick. And then the Green Crescent Trail, I think should go fairly quick. But I'd like to see all this done as quickly as possible.
And I would like to, you know, again, with fund balance and that kind of thing, we all know inflation, time, estimates, all those kind of things, that if we need a little bit more money to do this and do this in a high quality, first class way, that we haven't, already committed that cash that's there. Because again, I was somewhat pleasantly surprised with what we received here as well. I was a little concerned that it was going to be a little higher.
From a
Not
rate
a lot.
perspective.
From
Rate.
from a rate perspective.
And y'all know Webster, y'all know Webster Bank.
Yes, we do. We've worked with them. We're familiar with the
Okay.
with the lead banker. We've worked on them. Yeah.
You know where they're located based out of?
What are based on?
Well, the lead banker, I believe, is located in Charlotte. I'm not sure if they've got a local office here or not, but I believe he's in Charlotte.
What would be their position? Let's just say 7 months into this, and a big grant comes along for trail, where we could put down this section of trail right there to repurpose this to another project. I know we had to change our bond ordinance on that side of it, but from the bank's position, if an opportunity did come along, don't know if one will or won't, but you never know what programs are going to show up. So if something shows up that we can take advantage of specific to one of these projects, or we have flexibility with the bank,
As far as paying down the loan, or
repurposing the money to be used for a different purpose.
Basically, like he's saying, if a grant comes in that helps us with the Green Crescent Trail, using it for another Green Crescent Trail somewhere else, it's not specific. As specific as what we got.
Or something came in for Clemson Park, repurposing it to
Clemson Park,
Nellis
some
Park, or something like
enhancement.
that. So, yeah, it's not the prepayment side of it, it's the repurposing of the funds, changing our ordinance for our side of the table. But what is the bank's position on that?
yeah, I believe we would just we'd have to speak with them at that point about it. And I can follow up with them on that question and get back to you.
So, these funds are designated for these three projects, period.
Right, that's what I'm trying to make sure if we have some flexibility. We can change our ordinance, but what's the bank, they're gonna call it at that point in time.
Yeah, I wouldn't think they would, but just to be safe, I can certainly call and just kind of ask them about that option, because we did provide them with the ordinance, which the ordinance lays out these projects. So
The ordinance is very specific, so that's why,
yeah, just to be safe, I can certainly do that.
You guys can keep things on track. It's an ordinance. You got a second reading anyway.
Other questions for Jordan? Comments? Thank you, Jordan.
So
And
just
thanks
to-
for following up. Okay.
No, absolutely. Sorry, I was just going to say, just to be clear, did you want to go with the full 4.6 at 10 years?
Well, so this is discussion right now, and then later on the agenda, we'll go through the approval side. If
Can't
there's-
make any decisions.
Yeah, you can't make any decisions right now. So with that
All
said,
discussion.
it's all discussion right now, then later on, if we decide to move forward, you'll know at the end of the meeting. So, or near the end of the meeting.
Thank you.
That means he has to stay.
I do want to make a clarification about the Green Crescent Trail. So Green Crescent Trail project, we did receive some feedback, this appears to be going out to 18-mile road at the moment. That will only, occur if that property is annexed right now. It would only go to city limits. So only if that property ends up in the city. Also, the reason that we're thinking about that as the first kind of true trail segment is because that's the place where it can happen at the moment, where there's uninterrupted trail for people to enjoy, as opposed to, some of the other things we've done, which I think are good, sidewalks and curb cuts and those kind of things, and it's still not completely user-friendly for all levels of bicyclists and recreationists and that kind of thing. So this is so we have some true trail like you would expect to see if you go to Swamp Rabbit or Doodle. And this is, again, some of the other areas where we could do this right now, they're just way more complicated with easements and those kind of things. So this is it's going to be our demonstration of what life can be like with this as we continue to move forward with these things over the next 10 years.
Which is a great point, why that flexibility would be important.
Yeah.
And I have one other question, and Andy, this is kind of for you, and you know, I've talked about this kind of consistently through too with Clemson Park. If we're gonna invest in there with a 10-year note, having a 10-year parking agreement, which we don't have yet. So,
It's on the way. Andy's got that. I think.
Before 10 years?
It's in progress. I have an attorney working on that.
Yeah. We're combining all the agreements with the church.
Yeah.
I've thrown it into 10-year.
Yeah, we just have to make sure that, because to get back to if we pass this, this is second reading, so this is finalized tonight. But if we
Yeah.
ended up not having a 10-year parking agreement, we put $2.5 million in there with nowhere to go. So if we feel good about the 10 years, or if we need to.
Well, the current parking easement that is there because of the road easement, I think, has us covered.
Okay.
So there's
Yeah, I hadn't been party to that, that's why I'm asking the
so
question.
the church, the city granted the church an easement to Clemson Park Road to come out to have access out of the backside of the parking lot. And that easement agreement already has in it that the church will allow parking for the park.
Okay.
We're just combining the park, the garden, and the easement for this, I almost call it Swamp Rat, Green
So the
Crescent
easement may
Trail,
have a time
all into
limit.
one document where it'll be easy for us to find and see all those things
Great.
in one place. Yeah.
Since it's his second reading, if you wanted to delay it to wait for Jordan to come back with the answer to that question, your next meeting is before this deadline on October 6th, so the next meeting's on October 2nd.
We meet next Monday too, don't we? Yeah, that's
I thought we had a September 25th.
25th.
We have one next,
Monday.
we're waiting for some.
Plenty of time then.
I think that question would be good to have answered before we voted.
So Jordan, I think we just answered our own question. If you can find out exactly if you can repurpose it, if there's some flexibility. And then also a little more information on Webster Bank would be, I think, very helpful going forward. And then we'll put it on for second reading. It's not first reading. We're gonna make a correction here. I'm glad everybody, it is second reading for next Monday night. Okay. And you don't have to stay tonight. It's kind of hint, Jordan. But okay, all right.
And if you want some help on like how to phrase that question too, that with the idea that, like, again, if a grant came in and that if we were going to dedicate it to another park project that was similar in scope, what would we need to do to accomplish that?
Appreciate it. All right, any other comments, discussion? All right, next we'll go to discuss a proposed ordinance amendment to Chapter 11 Municipal Utilities for current practices. Heather.
So basically, this is just cleanup on the section of utilities ordinance. The first one that needs to be is Chapter 11, Section 2. We do not require a Social Security card. We haven't for a very long time, so it just needs to be taken out. And just the valid government-issued photo ID is all we require to establish service. The second is, last year we started transferring security deposits to kind of help out the students when they have to move from place to place, so they don't have to put down a new security deposit. So we just needed to take out that we won't transfer the security deposit, and we added some wording in there just to say that you cannot transfer it to another person or business name, but you can transfer it to another apartment or another house. The third one is Section 15, and it is that the finance director doesn't collect the current or delinquent bills. I do that, so just some cleanup work. Good?
Cool. I didn't see 11:15, sorry, Stephen, but you were scanning up, maybe.
Okay.
Andy's controlling, that's right. Yeah. All right, thank you. I've read it before, but I just was checking it again, so thanks. Appreciate it. Didn't mean to call you out, Andy. Thank you, Heather. Appreciate it. Any comments, questions for her before she steps down technically? All right, thank you again. All right, next is to discuss the Pendleton Clemson wastewater financing. Andy.
We have to send the Rural Infrastructure Authority we have to include commitment in our intergovernmental agreement saying that we will support the project to the 1 million gallon level, which is $15 million. So before I had the mayor sign, council endorse that full support, I wanted you to know what that meant, because the project jumped in cost. So that had impacts on your rate study that you just conducted. So what we did is we met with First Tryon and Wildan, who did our rate study analysis, and we said, okay, to what extent does our current rate structure support a $15 million project? And I didn't think it would. But if we make a couple of changes, it does support it at the $15 million level. But you have to, it comes at a little bit of a price. You have to reduce your debt coverage from 2 to 1.5. And then your operating cash reserves have to decrease from 9 months to 6 months. Now they recover over time at the current rate level, but it does make those changes. But you would not have to increase those rates. Jordan is still here. If you have any other questions about that, we are going to continue seeking funds. We've been to Columbia twice. We met with Senator Alexander. We met with the USDA. So far, we're finding out that the USDA is probably not going to be a good option for us on this thing. You know, we're looking at going to the bond market and getting some public bonds that way. It's going to be the most cost-effective way for us to do it. But we're still going to seek state funds. And the way we've got this thing structured now, we're going to break out the skip money that we received money for, and we're going to buy materials with that so that we would then be eligible for more federal funds as well. So we're going to have like a Part A and a Part B. We're going to have our current grant allocation that we spend, then we're going to have all the rest of it. But then we'll be eligible for anything at that point. But I wanted you guys to see this before I put that document in front of y'all saying that you fully commit to supporting the project to accept the rural infrastructure money.
The only thing I'll add to that is that we've also met with Representative Carter as well, and he's been a good advocate, so we appreciate his help. That's the only thing I would add.
Benji is here. I think it'd be good for everyone to hear that, you know, we've looked at several alternatives. We looked at phasing, we've looked at, and he can just explain that the way this plant is, you really...
Phasing's not an option.
It's not an option for a lot of different reasons, which he can help allude to. And if you did go to $3 million, we looked at going to $3 million instead of $5 million, but by the time you get there, you're over allocated anyway.
That's basically what Andy just said. If we were to cut it to $3 million or $3.5 million, we would be back in construction just as soon as we got through it. You know, basically got through construction. So the most feasible thing for us to do is go ahead and take the plant to $5 million, because what's going to happen? This plant's going to basically go from, instead of going from 2 million to 5 million, it's going to go from 0 gallons to 5 million gallons. It's basically rebuilding the plant. It's 42 years old, and we're actually changing the process. So that's going to be a big change to be able to allow this plant to be able to, you know, to extend to 7.5 million or 10 million gallons at a later date. You know, right now, if we continue on the path we're on right now, we can bump it up a little bit, but you know, if they just put one more basin in, we're at 3 million gallons forever. We move and put a new plant in, or you know, rip it out at a later date. That's basically the easiest, the best thing for us to do is go ahead and get a 5 million right now.
We're at capacity now, and
Right now, we're you know, the average daily flow is 1.2 to 1.3. The max month last year was, I believe it was 2.3 million. So we're there, and we've been operating on an advancement agreement at Clemson for several years now. So it's you know, if we were to have a boo-boo, and you know, they'd say cut everything off. So you got to maintain your permit. You can't fail. You can't. They're not going to allow you to fail. They're going to cut you off.
Am I correct in saying we are technically out of compliance, but because we have these plans, they are allowing us to operate on?
We've got we did the PER several years ago, and we're actually at 60% plans right now for the plan. It's been a lot of work going on behind the scenes and trying to get things worked out. But they're looking at a system that will allow us to put one train in, and then later on put another train in if we need to. So it's expandable, and they're going to use the clarifiers. So it won't be membranes like we have at Cochran Road, but it'll be a little bit different. But
Questions? Comments?
So from a comment, we can't really phase it. From a financial perspective, at worst case, we drop to 1.5 times debt service coverage, 6 months reserves. Worst case, you project to recoup almost by 28 within 5 years, but with rapid growth, actually, again, that's a worst case scenario right there. I mean, 1.5 coverage is solid, 6 months is solid.
I think the only thing I want us to do is, this goes back to something I've been beating the drum about for a long time, is communication. And I think we've got to be better at communicating what we're doing and why we're doing it and all this, because there are people in this community that, quite frankly, they don't understand, well, we did it on this part, but it's, it's a community, and you've got Cochran Road is servicing one portion, and this is another portion of the city, but we're one city. And I think people have got to understand that. And I think we've got to do a better job of telling them why and how and everything else. And I know that's on Ally, and I know it's on you, Andy, but I don't know what that document looks like. Let's just don't not communicate about it.
We can go back and further elaborate on this agenda item and show the two service areas on a map, maybe?
Well, make certain they understand that, because right now, it's like, well, we're good over here on the Cochran Road side, and they don't think about the other side of town.
But also, it's not on here, but talk about what we've done with impact fees, things like that. All of that, it's all one part of the communication. I think that's,
Yeah, it's an additional increase. That's my point about just being a worst case. That with what we have already done without moving forth an increase, this is where you are.
The debt service coverage is great to put on there, because that's what we're going to possibly have to do. But you don't have to get too. Only bankers up here, and other people know it, but if they want to know it, we can certainly.
They can realize the fact rates don't have to increase. To do this, to meet these safety nets, I would mention these as the safety numbers, and rates do not have to increase beyond what we've already done to meet that.
But I still think the emphasis needs to be on, this is a part of our community. I mean, we can't ignore this side of town because we fixed this side of town.
Well, it is one system.
Right.
And basically, the side, the sewer system side that goes to Pelham and Clemson is a lot newer than the side that's over here. Right. So those folks, everybody that's on that side's been, basically paying for, rebuilding the collection system and everything on this other side. So it's tit for tat.
But it doesn't matter what, again, I know we got several folks in the press in the back, but whatever they say is one thing and whatever the others say, but I still think we've got to get it down to very basics to make everybody understand what's going on.
We have that's easy to follow. That's show.
Good input.
If we mess this up, it's going to be really crappy.
And this increase too.
We digress. We do digress.
What a dad thing
This
to
is a
say.
system increase to 60 million. That is not the city of Clemson increase to.
Well, and I think that's what John's insinuating, that I think there was a headline that it was $60 million for the city of Clemson. So we have two other partners in this, and just getting that message.
60 million minus 15 million.
Well, I know.
Right.
I know, but it started out with 60, go 45, and then you have three partners. It's still a big number.
It's a big number, but it's not all ours.
Right.
And I think that's what the communication. It's not on, just everybody.
True. Anderson County and town of Pendleton.
Is that okay?
How exciting is this discussion, Scouts?
They're smiling. They're smiling.
Hey, it becomes very exciting if you come over there.
Appreciate it, Benji. Thank you, Benji. All right, next is to discuss the date for a public hearing on proposed map amendment, rezoning 3 parcels in Calhoun Forest. Nathan.
Thank you. I am here to set a public hearing date on a matter that the Planning Commission approved on September 11th. This is a zoning map amendment that would rezone 3 parcels in the Calhoun Forest neighborhood. Those parcels were annexed into the city in 1989, and then were parceled out in 1999. And the rezoning, or the zoning that they currently have, is RM3, which is multifamily, and that has been in place since it was annexed into the city. The annexation request was by the two owners that own the property. They live in Calhoun Forest next to the property, and the homeowners association of Calhoun Forest came and spoke in support of the rezoning as well. So this is to set a public hearing date to have you guys decide on changing our zoning map.
Did she say the homeowners present, didn't she say it was
Yeah,
unanimously?
they came and spoke
Unanimously supported.
Yeah,
Okay.
unanimous support. They have a very active homeowners association there. So the gentleman asking for it live at 100 and 102. And they want to keep the R20 so that it is consistent with the rest of the neighborhood. And there was some concern, they want to protect that, you know, they have that long drive in there, they like to protect the nature quality of that. So that's the reasoning for it, and we just need to set the public hearing date to have a vote.
It can be as soon as this Monday. Because it could be.
No, the public hearing requires at least 15
No, that's-
days.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So it'd be that well, no.
It'll be October 6th.
In order to meet my
15
state
days.
requirements, I need, so we recommend actually on here the October 16th date.
Okay.
Because I have to publish it.
So October 16th,
Prior to the.
yeah, so we would say 5 or 5:30.
So this would be pretty quick. I mean,
We got another one right behind it.
We got another, okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna have.
There's a couple.
Be here a while.
You wear comfy shoes?
Why don't we just hold out, we'll
Yeah, he's
determine
got a
the
whole list
time.
here to go.
Why don't we know the date,
He's got a
so
whole list
keep
to go.
going.
Yep. You up?
Yeah, keep going.
You go, okay.
I'm not even gonna read it, unless you want me to.
Well, it's up to you guys. I just want to make it easy for folks on YouTube. Yeah, so the next thing that I have to discuss is, I'm gonna set my list right here. The Planning Commission had 4 proposed zoning text amendments, and I'll go through those right now. The first is our fence ordinance. This started because our current fence ordinance requires that fences be 3.5 feet, sort of no matter the material. So what was happening was you were either having to custom order iron fence to be 3.5 feet because it's sold at 4 feet, or you're having to buy 4-foot wood fence and cut it to 3.5 feet. In discovering that in the zoning ordinance, we discovered there were some other things that we could clarify there as well. We were able to clarify what this would look like in terms of, it just said setback originally, so we wanted to make that consistent for corner lots so that you have setback on both sides to make it safe. We also clarified the height of a brick or rock wall and based that height of, I believe it's 32 inches, by driving around town and measuring things that are currently in place. So this is really, there's a lot of changes here, but it cleans up our fence ordinance. But the original intent was to address the height.
That's a minimum height of 4 feet.
It was a maximum height of 4 feet.
You got a lot of privacy.
This is front and side setback. So you still have your rear, you got privacy fence, but this is front. And I can answer any questions you guys have on that.
And, I mean, you covered the fences, help wanted, and banners.
Oh,
And then the bar review of PDs and New Hope School designation.
Yep, we'll go through all of it. Okay. Moving on to the help wanted signs and banners. We have thought for some time that we needed a help wanted line in our ordinance. We didn't. This adds that. It also changes that banners can be displayed for 3 approved 15-day periods instead of 2. This is based on requests we were getting from business owners to do it more often than our code allowed. And then finally, we added a provision to change grand opening signs for up to 60 days instead of 7. The length of that can be debated, but we were having, if you think of some recent examples of things opening downtown, just the length of construction, if we didn't want to go, currently we would have to fine them if they do it. So this allows us to be more business friendly in the office without circumventing any ordinance that we have in place. The next thing I have is during the signet process, 408, 412 College Avenue, the developer actually found it very helpful when our Board of Architectural Review stepped in at the workshop, had a joint workshop with the Planning Commission. And the Planning Commission enjoyed that process, and the BAR very much wanted to be a part of it. So rather than have to call a special workshop, this adds a provision that the Planning Commission can request that, and we can just sort of standard codify that process to where the BAR is in charge of any plan development, or not in charge, but participates in any plan development that we have. And I think what came out of that meeting and the feedback that I got from Spencer Hyatt, the developer at Signet, was that he actually took some comments that he received at that meeting and he found them very helpful, and there were some significant changes to that. The next is, let's see, yes. So the New Hope School, which is on the Packlet Milliken property. Packlet Milliken has requested that we find a way to help them be able to apply, that they can participate and apply for grants. So currently in our code, we have a provision where we call the culturally significant property list. This adds that to this list, as well as I can help Packlet Milliken with some of the grant work that they're gonna have to do in terms of just finding plats and things like that. And so this allowed code changes to allow staff to provide that help, as well as add this to the culturally significant property list, which wasn't necessarily the intent of the cultural significant property list to begin with, but we think it's a reasonable place in the code for that to go, and it will help them be able to apply for grants, which they will in turn use to preserve that property. Their intent right now is to leave that property where it is, but it has vinyl siding and some things on it now, so return it to how it would have looked in the past and restore that so they can be a community facility.
By adding it to that list, does that, I mean, it allows us to step in and assist with things that you're talking about, but does it provide any guarantee that they can't do certain things to that property? Like they can't abandon that plan?
It does not. Currently, the culturally significant property list, what it really does is exempt a property from Board of Architectural Review requirements.
That's it?
That's all it does right now. So we talked through several things. We even talked about council just issuing a proclamation that it was significant to the city of Clemson. Back and forth with the developer, they didn't think that was strong enough for them to apply for some of the grants that they were looking for. Meaning that...
So this stemmed from, they believe that this will help them get grant money?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Okay. But that's great.
Yeah, in order to do what they're asking for. So, I guess a better way to say that was, in order to apply for some federal grants and things like that, it needs to be in ordinance,
right.
And this doesn't.
Got it. So they're researching and trying to find proof if it is a Rosenwald school, and they're working with a gentleman at the university, Rick Owens, who has a lot of knowledge about Rosenwald schools, and there is some debate on whether it can be registered as a the National Register of Historic Places since it's been moved.
Correct.
So I'm all for anything that will help negate that inactivity.
At the Planning Commission meeting, and I'm blanking on the name right now, but the citizen...
Charlotte.
And I learned a lot.
Oh, yeah.
So it was great. We learned a ton. And she's on board, is
right.
willing and able to help them when they start the process. So.
Yeah, because this is something that we've been trying to save. Because initially, 3 or 4 years,
say, it feels so
About
much
4
longer.
years, I think.
4 years?
About 4 years. And so to be here, I think is a great step, and I know Packard Milliken is trying to do its best to ensure that we do save that building, and that, actually that campus. So I think this is a good, if this is gonna help get the grants and talking with them, I think this is the way to go to do that. So I'm real excited about the possibility.
It was also named to the UPT, like Most Endangered Places list. It's a nonprofit. I don't know if that helps with those discussions. They're aware of that, but it might be worth bringing it back up just to have more fuel.
Yeah, I know the issues were that it was moved, and then it's been, the vinyl siding and stuff doesn't necessarily help, but the plans that they have it restored in place and used as a community amenity, so.
Someone live there for
I think it's a great thing.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, so thank you, Nathan.
is
So
that
we're
the
back.
dates? I said the public hearing.
Yeah, so back to the date, we determined it October 16th. I would suggest 5 o'clock with all the different items, just to make sure we have plenty. And I assume we could also start the city council meeting like we've done before if we finish.
At the conclusion of the public hearing?
Correct.
Yes, you can.
Okay. So if that's an agreement, I mean, I don't mean to, I'm not making the decision, I'm just suggesting that.
I think that'll be plenty of time, because these are pretty.
I mean, we can do it at 5:30. I just want to make sure if anybody had plenty of time to discuss any of these items.
And make sure they have time to get there too, count their ballots.
Sure. So, anyway.
Will this help the Packard Milliken project get going?
I hope so. We're pretty,
Just keep in mind, it's called Cadera now.
Cadera project.
Yeah, Cadera.
Regardless.
We're in active conversations with them, and they are moving ahead.
And I'm the liaison on that one, so we are Nathan, myself, Andy, Alec, and plenty of Nathan. I'll just bring out pretty much everybody from the city.
Yeah.
So we are actively discussing.
Are we going 5:30?
So 5 or 5:30, I'm indifferent. Go back to 5:30?
I prefer 5:30, but if we do
Okay.
5, then I can do 4.
5:30, if we need it, and then we can always start the later, so 5:30, October 16th. Does that work?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay. Thank you, Nathan. All right, next is staff reports. Andy.
Set a couple of dates for you.
All right, over there.
So excited.
Municipal Association Legislative Action Meeting is on October 17th at 11 o'clock. That's at Prisma Health in Unity Park. Our next SCDOT quarterly meeting is coming up on October 19th. And Rock the Block, September 26th at 5:30. And I just wanted to let y'all know that the Parks and Rec Master Plan is underway. Right now they are developing the survey and doing site visits. They want to get the survey out as soon as possible. And our comprehensive plan consultants are looking to kick things off the week of November 13th. And they're going to have a kickoff community meeting. They talk about the comp plan, what it is, get some preliminary feedback, and then they're going to have focus groups and start meeting with groups here at the city. And there's also going to be a joint meeting at that time between council and the planning commission. And then that group will serve as the steering committee moving forward. I wanted to see if y'all would be okay with moving conversations with council October to the 19th, because I have better availability of council members on that day due to travel. So if I don't hear any objections there, I'll make that change. And then let me know if you would like to play in the Chamber Golf Tournament. It's October 12th. If you want to play, just call me and let me know, and I'll put you on a team. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
So just going back to conversation, so October 19th will be the new date. If we change it from October 12th, unless somebody says different.
Yeah, for this 1 month.
For this 1 month, yeah. Okay, that's what I'll make sure. Okay.
When did you say the Rock the Block was?
26.
26.
It's a Tuesday, that's right.
The last one until next spring. Thank you. Any questions, comments? If not, okay. Before we Actually, got one. We'll go into policy action items. Remember, it's a 2-minute limit per speaker. I'll make sure everybody has plenty of time to come up if they would like to have any discussion on any of these items. So I'll first start with consider second reading of ordinance amending Chapter 13, Section 1375 standards for residential rental unit to reflect the International Property Maintenance Code. Nathan, do you want to add to the last time we discussed it on, since this is second reading?
Yeah, so part of our city property maintenance code did not match up with the International Property Maintenance Code. Our city rental housing standards didn't match up with the International Property Maintenance Code, and this corrects where those didn't. There are 4 changes, but they're minor in that some that says 4 or more stairs, and that the property maintenance code, our International Property Maintenance Code says more than 4, and we had a minimum of 36 inches in height for railing, and this had 30. We required the 48-inch fence barrier that they did around swimming pools, and then we had our rental code said that our heating units had to maintain 70, and they said 68, so we're changing it to match up.
Questions for Nathan, comments? Questions, comments, and Stephen, you always let me know. Thank you. I'm looking over, you're kind of hiding over there. I'm noticing that. All right. All right, would somebody like to make a motion?
Make a motion, we approve second reading of an ordinance amending Chapter 13, Section 13-75, standards for residential rental units to reflect the International Property Maintenance Code as presented.
Second.
Okay. Any comments, discussion? If not, all in favor, raise your right hand. Kat? All right, thank you, Catherine. Didn't need to call.
Scared me.
Appreciate
I
it.
forgot she was there.
So, Beverly, you did hear. Okay, Catherine. Okay. The reason why I hesitated on the next one is obviously we were talking about moving that back for, what's the next Monday? What's the date?
There's one of these we can do, and one of them we need to move
Yeah,
back.
you can
right?
do the general bond.
We can do this.
The general, okay, then the second one, okay then. But before we even do that, Leslie was so kind, just for y'all's own it's beneficial information. The state treasurer's office, as of August 31st, the interest rate is 5.589%. So almost 5.6 right now, just FYI. So technology, thanks for texting that. I'm not looking at my phone, but it popped up, okay? I know, I just got, I'm looking at it. So
Do you want to say that, so if we have to reword either one of them to not specify a park along the way?
This one won't need, this is all just boilerplate bond ordinance.
Okay.
There's
Well, just
nothing
because it says the
specific.
3 of them in the agenda item, it's got 3 specific project name.
This is, there should be 2 items. One's for general bond ordinance and the other one is for supplemental bond ordinance, number 1. This here is the general bond ordinance, which is not specific to any borrowing. This is just what's going to allow you to issue bonds on anything. We hadn't done bonds in so long that the attorney said, I think it'd be a good idea if we just refreshed that.
Okay.
all right, so the item that we're talking about is consider second reading of a special obligation bond ordinance to fund enhancement to Nettles, Clemson Park, and Green Crescent Trail.
No.
Well, I think,
That's what both of them say.
That's what
So they both say,
That's fine.
then they don't, yeah, then they
So
shouldn't.
we'll defer until next Monday.
Okay.
That's what John was
When that's why I was reading, I was like,
listed in 3 parts.
all right, with everybody, we'll move both those items. So the next one, item C, is also going to be moved till next Monday. So next is to consider first reading of ordinance to amend, I gotta put these on, Division 2, Police Department Advisory Board, Section 265, Terms of Office Vacancies, Compensation for the Services Terms of the Police Advisory Board student members. Chief.
Mr. Mayor, council members, as you all are aware, we have the Police Advisory Board. I have 9 members, 2 of which, one is a Clemson University student, the other is a high school student. The way we assign folks to our city boards, it's basically January to December, and each January is when you all select. However, because of the student schedules, it doesn't josh. We have issues, a lot of times during the summer they don't attend because of their schedule. So what we're recommending here is that we assign them based on the school year. so that they know ahead of time who's going to be coming in the fall and who will be obligated throughout the year. So the other thing, we added a little elaboration to how Clemson University selects their student through student government. And so we had a little bit of a faux pas because apparently there's 2 student senates, one's for the undergrads and one for the grads. And so there was a conflict between the two. So we're gonna let them decide who's gonna represent them. And then we'll bring the name forward in application and y'all can consider it then. But that's what this ordinance is for. Any questions?
Questions, comments for Chief? Public? Anyone? All right. Would somebody like to make a motion? Thank you, Chief.
I make a motion that we approve the first reading of ordinance revision 2-65, amending the service terms for the Police Advisory Board members.
Second.
Okay, comments, discussion? If not, all in favor, raise your right hand. Hey, Catherine, I was getting to you, so you're just chiming right in. Appreciate it. All right, other policy items. Consider a bid award for lead testing contract to Rogers in the amount of $15 per test for city water customers. You're not Gracie.
Not Gracie. She's Gracie's coaching volleyball.
I got you.
CCR, so she's actually hopefully her team won. So
there you go. I understand. And happy belated birthday to you and Gracie, since y'all both have the same birthday as of yesterday. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Someone told me that.
So the policy that we read last council meeting, this is the actual RFP award for the company that would perform the testing to DX standards. Rogers and Cockett was the only respondent that we had to our RFP. They came in at what we thought was a pretty fair price of $15 per test, and that's them picking up once to twice a month and performing the test within about 3 weeks. So this is the actionable item to the policy.
Comments, questions for Nathan?
No, but they talked about it at conversations with council.
Right. That's good. That's what it's for.
The residents will pay the $15 as per the policy. If approved, what it will be is it will be a $15 charge added to the water bill the following month.
And it's a voluntary.
Yeah, it's
you
not
choose
required.
to be part of this.
This is just if you have concerns, this is an opportunity. A lot of testing firms don't allow for individual residents to use their services. They want a larger contract. So we're providing the contract for them to be able to have the testing.
Comments? Stephen? No. Would somebody like to make a motion for the testing part?
I make a motion that we award the lead testing contract to Rogers and Calcutt in the amount of $15 per test for city water customers.
Second.
Comments? If not, all in favor, raise your right hand and please say yes or no, Catherine.
Yes.
Okay. All right. And then the approval of the water customer lead testing policy.
So this is the same policy. No revisions have been changed from last presented. This is the kind of just the standards that we can have so we can know how the policy will work and understand the procedures for the lead testing, and then the advantages if they choose to have their water tested, what to expect from the city and how we can help with that.
If it's all approved, how are we publicizing this?
We'll have to do e-blasts and.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's what I was just wondering.
Yeah, in the paper bills.
Probably in paper bills, yeah, something like that. And we're going to be submitting fees on a monthly basis, so if you want one done, we'll turn a bunch of them in at one time at the end of the month.
The goal would be is you have a bottle pickup once a month. Then the following, I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday, I'd have to really check. It'd give you an opportunity to see it. We'd have a reminder email to you on Friday to test, to make sure you grab your water samples sometime during the weekend, and then return the samples to us. Then Rogers and Cockett would pick up the following, about 2-3 days, 48 hours afterwards, in case we had any lag. and then we go through the testing procedure and be ready for it for the next month as well. So a once a month pickup and a once a month drop off is what the goal is, unless there is, someone needed different, we'd be willing to work with them.
We'll also need to, take in some of the feedback we received at our ABEL community meeting. We'll probably need to do some paper flyers and just old school stuff and drop them off at central locations.
Appreciate you going that extra effort. Thank you. All right. Comments? Questions? If not, would somebody like to make a motion?
Make a motion, we approve the water customer-led testing policy as presented.
Second.
Perfect time for that second. Comments or discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. Catherine?
Yes.
All right. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Nathan. Thanks for filling in. Appreciate it. Next, Mayor Council reports, comments, new business.
Robert, can I say something?
Sure, absolutely.
I just wanted to say, if anybody, whoever went over to see Joe Phillips and do the skate park exhibition, it was wonderful. Allie was there, I know, and I'm a bad guesser, but there were probably at least on and off 75 to 100 people there.
That's what I heard. The attendees was around 190 to 100 throughout the night. So thank you. Yeah, Joan got really good feedback, and we've relayed that over the weekend. I know I've received a couple of comments. I know others probably on the city council as well. And so Joan was very pleased, and I know it's great participation. So thank you, Catherine.
We're still gonna get John on one skateboard.
Which John?
Well, I'd really pay for both.
Okay. All right, there you go. All right. Other comments?
I think this is not your Rotary, but the midday Rotary is looking for some help as far as buying tickets for the oyster roast.
Yeah, that's not us.
I knew it would. I don't want to.
She's the morning.
She's a runner.
She's the early one. So it's on Friday, October 6th, and so they are needing some, their oyster roast.
Friday before homecoming.
I know, tickets sale is running a little bit behind, I think, right now.
Good information. All right. Other comments? All right. If not, last chance. Okay. Next, possibly going into executive session to review the city attorney applications. And would somebody like to make a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments or discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. All right. We'll be back Comments, all in favor, raise your right hand. All right, we're back in regular session, and we have nothing to report from executive session, so would somebody like to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All this discussion, all in favor, raise your right hand. All right, have a great evening.